kind of fun being the warm-up act. Sacred wisdom, or in Judaism, Torah, is the great symbol of God's love. You might say that revelation is Judaism's version of incarnation. Christians get a version of God in the body of a person. Jews get a version of God in the letters and words of a handwritten parchment scroll. The primary problem is, however, not which form you encounter God, but what you've got to do to be able to receive it when it's offered. A story. The first time my wife and I were up in the mountains of Montana, we were awed and even a little frightened by the scale and power of the wilderness. Whether buildings or bridges or even hiking trails, the creations of human beings seem by comparison precariously inadequate, hopelessly finite and fragile. Back east, nature must be preserved and revered. High in the Rockies, it was the opposite. Here we had to be wary of nature, lest in a blind moment she consume us all. Everywhere signs warned of bears. They can run, swim, and climb faster than any human being, and they have been known to attack without provocation. Stories circulated about an unwary hiker who just a few months ago. Karen and I drove up to the end of the road at Two Medicine Lake, where there was a log cabin general store and a little boat that could ferry you to the trailhead on the far shore. Inside, watching hummingbirds dart to and fro around a feeder, having a cup of coffee, I met Charlie Slocum, a retired biology teacher from Minnesota, who spends his summers working for the National Park Service. In the pristine Eden air, I understood why he had returned now for a score of summers. But I was also more than casually concerned about being eaten by a grizzly. You get many bears up here, do you? I asked. Sometimes we get quite a few. How about on that easy trail around the lake over there? Any chance of running into any this morning so near the store? He paused long enough to hear the question behind the question and took a long, slow sip of coffee. Well, if I could tell you for sure there wouldn't be any bears, it wouldn't be a wilderness now, would it? I thanked him for his candor, and we went on our hike. Maybe that's all it ever comes down to. You can walk where things are predictable, or you can enter the wilderness. Without the terror and the joy of the wilderness, there can be neither reverence nor revelation. Sacred wisdom and its prerequisite reverence, in other words, can only be found in the wilderness, a psycho-spiritual place where it is always and only now. If you can only remember what you have learned in the past, or if you can only think in advance of what you will learn in the future, you won't be in the wilderness anymore, and it won't be sacred wisdom. This thing has 5 parts. The first part is called sacred wisdom. You just heard it. Part 2 is called indwelling spirit, or in Hebrew, Shina. Rabbinic Judaism identifies the dimension of God we encounter in the world as Shina. This indwelling presence is always feminine, shows up even at unlikely times and places, and like a bird is easily frightened and flies away. So I'm standing in the middle of the New Mexico desert a few years ago. It's 30 degrees and a half hour before dawn. We are in the Bosques del Apache, the forest of the Apache, a bird sanctuary. In the distance, the horizon is becoming visible now as a dark ribbon of deep red in the winter chill. And suddenly dawn explodes into bright orange. And then, within the next 15 minutes, we watch in awestruck silence as 25,000 snow geese, cranes, great blue herons, and God only knows who else awake from their sleeping on the water and fly off for the next leg of their migration. They are so close, and there are so many of them, I can literally feel the flapping, wing-flung wind on my face. The park rangers call it the flyaway. Last evening they had warned, "You're never the same after the flyaway." And now I understand. Somehow simply being present to experience this event changes your perception of what it means to be a creature. And here's the thing that chastens and humbles me. The birds do this all the time, whether I'm there to watch them or not. They land in the waters of the Bosques, and come first light, they fly away into the dawn, a sky full of wings and feathers, and they do it year after year, just like the great whales do it through the waters of the sea, and the mitochondria do it through the fluid within our cells. Great flowing currents of protoplasm doing what they were meant to do. My God, I can still feel the wing-flung wind on my face. I figured that was the end of this story until I was having breakfast at a convention hotel in Pittsburgh with 3 other rabbis. I don't remember how we got on the topic, but Liza says, "I'll tell you about a time when I felt the wings of the Shina." Liza always has neat things to say, and since I'd been writing about the flapping of wings, I listened real carefully. "I met my obstetricians for a routine appointment," she says. "This is already my 4th pregnancy, so the doctor and I have become friends. While she's hooking me up for the ultrasound, we just go on with our conversation. Somehow, we had gotten to talking about birth order, and I asked my doctor if her husband was a first child. 'Oh, no,' she says. 'My husband's a twin.' 'A twin?' I say. 'My God, if I had twins, I'd need a new house, a new husband, a new life.' The obstetrician turns on the ultrasound machine. And together we look in reverent silence at the image on the screen. 'Here, do you see,' she says, the doctor, pointing to a tiny line. 'This is the spine.' 'And what's this?' I ask, pointing to another line on the other side. She pauses for a moment. A smile forms on her lips. 'Why, that's the other one.' I could feel the wind of the wings of the Shekhinah flapping. It was as if God had come and gently fluttered open the next page of my life book. The page had been written there all along. It was only waiting for me to see it. And here's the thing. Such visitations with the Shekhinah do not leave you unconcerned with the world, glazed over or blissed out. In Judaism, they hurl you back into the everyday life with renewed and heightened ethical passion. Indeed, After the appearance of the Zohar in 13th century Spain, virtually every manual of ethical discipline was written by a practicing Kabbalist. Or to put it another way, you don't have an experience of the divine all and then go out and rip someone off, ignore someone in need, or lie about your age to get into a movie on the cheap. Something about encountering the Holy One supercharges whatever ethics you originally had. And this leads me to my third observation. This one is about doing no harm. I learned this actually from a computer game. It's the first one I really got hooked on. Must have been 25 years ago now. In those early days, computer games were mainly video arcade contraptions with primitive little animated characters chasing one another around the screen, or spaceships shooting at alien invaders. Some of you may even remember playing ping pong in monochrome. Bip, 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 bip. Most of them required split-second reflexes. But this is a new breed, my son patiently explained. It's called virtual reality. You play it by entering it. Your only chance at winning is by imagining you actually live inside it. And the purpose of it all? Why, of course, to figure out what you're doing there. What fascinates me here is not yet another clever way to waste time in front of my computer. It's the concept of a game whose purpose is to discover the purpose. Virtual reality, smirtual reality, this ain't no game. Why am I here? What are the rules? Now, while my virtual reality computer game may have been infuriatingly complex, at least I had the comfort of knowing that it was designed by someone. I may not be clever enough to figure it out, but it does have a purpose. It has rules. It has an end. Life, on the other hand, comes with no such implicit guarantee. Its time frame and playing field are literally beyond our comprehension. So this gets me to wondering, what if there were a virtual reality computer game that was programmed to approximate real life? I mean, if you could design such a program, what would be the object? The way I see it, there are only a few rules. The first rule of the game of life is that you cannot decide when to begin playing. One day, out of the blue, you realize you're playing. Someone or something else determined when your game would begin, and it wasn't your parents. They may have known about the birds and the bees and even set out to conceive a child, but they didn't have a clue it was going to be you. And now that they've had a chance to meet you, while they most likely love you, they probably would have picked someone else. In religious language, this means that you are a creature. Someone else made you, and you are neither its partner nor its puppet. You are its manifestation, its agent, and its child. The second rule is that you cannot decide when to stop playing the game either. One day, out of the blue, you're dead. For a slogan on the box of the Game of Life, we could use something I once saw on a t-shirt. Life, you're not going to make it out alive. That means there's no way you can win the game by staying in it forever. No matter how many points, toys, honors, conquests, dollars you accumulate, sooner than anyone expects or wants, the game is abruptly over. You hear a little chime, maybe a buzzer, The keyboard freezes. Screen goes blank. The game ends without warning. Nothing you acquire, accomplish, or believe will have any effect whatsoever on when your game ends. But there's good news. Dying does not mean you lose. It's what you do before you die that determines whether or not you win when you die. The third rule is that points are awarded whenever you can discern the presence of the Creator and then act in such a way as to help others see it too. The presence is not just in objects, but in actions and thoughts and feelings, and not just in sunshine and happiness, but in agony and struggle and death. Remember, finding the presence of the Creator and then acting in such a way as to help others find it too is the only known way to accumulate game points. And the last rule is that everything is connected to everything else. Therefore, life is overbrimming with meaning. Most of the time, we are oblivious. We go about our lives as if everything was happenstance, a crapshoot. And then something happens and we see the connection. For just a moment, we are astonished we couldn't see it until now. There are no accidents. Throughout all creation, just beneath the surface, joining everyone and everything in a luminous organism of sacred responsibility, we discover invisible lines of connection. Now that's my idea of a game. This all obviously redirects our attention from the theoretical holiness to the hard reality of how we treat one another as actual human beings. Like my downstairs neighbor, for example. You know, Leviticus 19, V'ahavta l'reecha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. But this translation, while certainly appropriate and common, I believe, misses the central idea, which is also supported by the original Hebrew. The last word, kamocha, which can be read not just as yourself, but also as because he is like you. The reason I love my neighbor, in other words, is because the poor bastard is just like me. I may never love him as much as I love myself, but we're both in this thing together. And just like me, he's doing the best he can. And this leads me to my fourth observation. This one is about the band on the Titanic. Indeed, their resolution to continue playing amidst the chaos has attained almost mythic status. But I am puzzled that their continued music making while the great ship went down is often misunderstood as an act of futility. A string quartet playing Schubert while the world falls apart. I am now convinced that the musicians' decision to continue playing despite their obvious fate, is a gesture of mutual respect, dignity, and even piety. Everyone was going to die. The only operative question remaining now was how. Some of you may remember the scene in the Cameron movie. All the lifeboats are either gone or full. The ship has begun to list. Deck chairs begin to slide. Passengers are running this way and that, screaming in terror. And the band members agree it's time to stop playing. They start to put away their instruments, but then it dawns on, I think it was the violist, that there's nowhere to go. In such a situation, the only thing to do is the only thing you know how to do. And if you happen to be a musician, it means you go on making music as best you can. So the violist turns back to the ensemble and offers one of the great movie lines of all time. Through tears, picking up his instrument, with all humility, dignity, and piety, he says, "Gentlemen, it's been a privilege playing with you tonight." It occurs to me that that may be just all any of us ever get to say. It's been a privilege playing with you. Would that we too could speak those words without the threat of imminent death. To live in such a way as to be able to honestly say that line to the other members of the band with whom we come in daily contact. We are all musicians in the ship's band. The boat may not be sinking, but like it or not, we are going to die. This sobering realization can make us run wild with terror, just like most of the people on the Titanic. Or as with the musicians, it can lend dignity, grace, and beauty to the music we play. For truth be told, we are all doing the very best we can at what may be finally the only thing we know how to do. What a holy place this world is. What an extraordinary orchestra. We whisper to one another, "It's been a privilege playing with you." This brings me to my fifth and final story. This really happened, and I suspect is what Thomas Merton referred to when he used the phrase spiritual stability. A light snow was falling, and the streets were crowded with people. It was Munich in Nazi Germany. One of my rabbinic students, Shifra Penzias, told me her great-aunt Susie had been riding a city bus home from work when SS stormtroopers suddenly stopped the coach and began examining the identification papers of the passengers. Most were annoyed, but a few were terrified. Jews, you see, were being told to leave the bus and get into a truck parked round the corner. My student's great-aunt watched from her seat in the rear as the soldiers systematically worked their way down the aisle. She began to tremble, tears streaming down her face. When the man next to her noticed that she was crying, he politely asked her why. I don't have the papers you have. I am a Jew. They're going to take me." But when the man heard this, he only exploded with disgust. He began to curse and scream at her. "You stupid bitch," he roared. "I can't stand being near you." The SS men asked what all the yelling was about. "Damn her," the man shouted angrily. "I'm so fed up. She always does this. My wife has forgotten her papers again." The soldiers laughed and moved on. My student said that her great-aunt never saw the man again. She never even knew his name.